Thursday, March 25th meeting of the Finance Committee. And now for the script. We are now using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed of the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their names, first and last names, please. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who've raised their hands in the order they were raised. The YouTube chat will no longer be enabled, and all questions should be directed through the chair. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair of the Nantucket Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that agenda, George. Our president can hear me. We'll start with George, so you can go to mute. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. George?
Aye.
Thank you. And then please mute George. Joe?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Peter Schaefer?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative, starting with Rick Sears.
Here.
Thank you. Brian?
Present.
Libby?
Present.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment as previously noted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, and before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, I will ask FinCom if they have any questions, comments, or motions. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you. And if you want to talk to other members, please do so through the chair. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, so first item is approval of the agenda, please. May I have a motion?
So
Second.
moved.
Thank you. Okay, Peter Schaefer.
Second. Oh, yeah, aye.
Thank you. Jill.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
George.
Aye.
Back to mute, George. Thank you. Joe.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And Jill, I got you, right? Okay, good. And Denise, aye. Okay, thank you. At this point, I will open it for public comment. And I will close it for public comment. And so we have the meeting minutes that were sent out. There were 9. I had a list of them, which is of course not on my desk right this minute. Was there any comments or corrections from anyone on FinCom about those minutes? Jill?
I only had a question because when we redid the articles for the previous year, there aren't any votes next to those. And I just didn't know if that needed to be in there or if there was any reason to put those in there. You would just go back to the vote from last year. Is that what?
The motion stand as prior year.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? In which case, can I get a motion to approve en bloc?
Motion to approve all the minutes that are on block.
Second.
Even better. Okay, Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris. Joanna. Aye. George. Thank you. And Joe, you're going to abstain?
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Thank
I
you.
haven't read them.
Denise, aye. Okay, those are done. Thank you. We will skip committee reports because I think we have Dorothy with us for the CRC, so we'll just do it when we get to Article 9. And now we are on review and discussion of town meeting warrant articles. And Rob has another engagement, so we will start with actually Article 14, the appropriation of supplemental funding for construction of the Nobody Fieldhouse. And Rob, thank you for being here with us today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not sure if anyone has the presentation queued up, or I could do that on my screen. Rick,
We're going to
would you
share
like
the screen. Right, we're going to share the screen with the
Thank you.
presentation. Yep.
All right. So Nobody at Fieldhouse, we can go to the second slide. Thank you. Essentially, if any of the, I'll just give a little history. The project itself has a rich history that I think extends back to the late or early 2007, 2008 timeframe that was originally imagined. It went through a number of different iterations, and ultimately the project moved forward and was priced, I believe, by a contractor at one point. Maybe it went out to bid. Brian might be able to give some background there. The pricing that came back was somewhere in the 1.6 to 1.7 range, and included, I believe, a basement, a second story, and a commercial kitchen. So the project did not get funded. It did not get built and has sat without a project manager for some time. So when I came on, one of the projects Libby handed me was this one and said, let's get it done. So in the end, we are back on track here. We've had some public information sessions and met with interested parties, gotten feedback, and boiled the project down to what is currently programmed, which is it's an efficient 3-season weather shelter with bathrooms. It's served by town water, Wannacommon water and septic. Basically, we're talking about a 46 by 45 footprint on a concrete pad. It is, as described here, just the space, the bathrooms, and covered porch in the back. Next slide, please. Ultimately, the front section is on the bottom right. You can see the 2 doors on the ends, and then 3 overhead garage doors that are styles of barn doors. Both ends of the building have sliding barn doors, and ultimately the rear door out of the main space is under the covered porch section, and that's a interior sliding barn door. When under operation in the 3 seasons of use of the Nobodere Farm Field Complex, the field house, 1,400 square feet roughly, would basically be an open area that is multi-use capable, that is primarily there to provide shelter from the weather, whether that's just shade from sunny days and allowing the breeze to come through while kids are playing games for parents to be there, or in days of practice with inclement weather, for kids to be able to shelter inside, either to practice on the concrete floor or to wait out the weather. Obviously, the bathrooms on the back, the 3 doors on the rear of the building in the upper picture on the right. And that is by code, the requirement for recreational use for men's, women's, and family bathroom. The interior space has just the open floor plan and 1 mechanical closet. And I'd say the only other thing of note here is the gable ends have some circular art glass associated with them that have a theme back to the roots of the name Nobodier, is the Native American name. So that has some tie back to Native American history. The project has been approved by HTC. Next slide. The opinion of probable construction cost from our architect and their professional estimator is at 1.6, and that includes the island markup factor and contingency and as-builts. The funding partially from CPC, partially from a previous authorization, leave us at just over 600,000. So we are looking for $1 million in supplemental to move this project forward. I will say that the footprint, the area that this project is being designed into has the ability to basically mirror the building and double in size as the campus and the usage of this facility gets broadened or expanded into the future. So that's a nice feature here as well. But for today, this is the full complement of the project. We have the project out to bid. The bids are due to return just shy of town meeting, so that we'll have actual actionable contract bid pricing back for the discussion on town meeting floor, and hopefully with both a vote at the election as well as the town meeting, if they're both positive, we'll be able to execute and begin construction as early as this summer. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's the schedule I'm talking about there. Next slide. Just a highlight of the permits. And I think that's probably it. Next slide. Some of the people involved so far and the costs associated with it so far. Next slide. Just highlighting the cultural feature and a note on just resiliency measures. Right now, it's again 3 season. The program was really pared down to its bare essentials, and right now we're not looking at much of anything as far as power goes, except for just lighting. Next slide. And that's about it in a nutshell. Happy to try to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rick. Questions, Jill?
Hey, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. And I didn't realize it had been approved by HDC last May. That's a long time ago. Did they have any issue with the standing seam roof when you originally took that to them?
Nope. No, I think it was originally, if I remembered correctly, it was originally proposed that way. And that's what went back to them. That was obviously a recommendation from the architect as well for longevity.
Yeah, and it's a good way to save money too. So I'm really in favor of those. They're also good for solar panels. Was that ever actually because they clip on and it doesn't penetrate the roof very much? And I just wondered if that was anything considered.
It certainly was considered, but it's outside the scope of what the project was originally imagined to be. So this was to get a field house built, and I absolutely had solar in mind, and it is something that could be retrofitted into the building, either at a later time or as if the building ever were to be expanded upon a future project.
Okay, and then 2 more questions. Sorry, Denise, but one issue I think for these buildings was about people changing clothes, and it seems like we just have small bathrooms. I mean, little kids can change in there for sure, but like if a whole team comes over, is that part of like the longer plan if you add another building, or that's not ever been part of the purview of this?
That was not part of the program.
Okay, I guess that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because again, we have people come over with teams and they get stuck here and, you know, or it just seems like that would make a lot of sense in the future if that was taken into consideration. And then my last question is this a building? It's a town building, I guess, a town-owned building. Can this be rented out to bring in income? Is that allowed?
Yeah, that would certainly be a question for town management. That would be outside of my purview. I mean, I'd simply speak back to the question you had before. The open interior space is something that is considered to be highly multifunctional, particularly the fact that this is a 3-season expected use. There's a high probability of being able to store municipal equipment inside the building in the winter. That could be, you know, that would be used to maintain fields and other things off season. There's no reason why sections could be outfitted with, you know, whether it's cubicle walls or something along those lines to allow kids to change to be prepared for practice to some level. But just this, you know, there was, this was a significantly pared down to the bare essentials program compared to the original design from 10 years or so ago. And the price actually came back largely identical.
Okay. And then about renting out, I guess maybe through Denise, maybe Denise, you know the answer to that. I don't know.
I don't, but either Libby or Brian can jump in. Thank you, Jill.
I don't know what we would rent it out for. If we ever decided we had a need to rent it out, we would have to go through a procurement process.
I guess if somebody wanted to have a family picnic there or something, I don't know, Libby.
I don't think that's within our program for this.
I was trying to think. It doesn't look like a wedding venue to me, but you know.
This is a very basic structure that is meant to have basic needs serviced, not be an event venue.
Joanna?
Just a quick, so the cooking piece of it, the kitchen piece of it, so it's equipped for that to be added on at some point, or what are the basic things that can be done there in that respect?
So the kitchen was specifically excluded. It's not set up to handle any kitchen use whatsoever.
But there's like a hose, is there a drinking fountain, water bottle fill up station? Can you put a barbecue outside? I mean, I just see that sometimes those things could potentially happen there.
Sure. So there is a drinking fountain that Wannacomet Water had provided 2 years ago, just outside here on the concrete pad. That is expected to remain in place. That is, I think, both a drinking fountain and water bottle filling station. Nothing in the building, though, to like nothing specific in the building to accommodate that.
And like picnic tables, that sort of thing?
I think there are picnic tables out there currently. Certainly, part of the outside of this structure is a concrete pad, as I mentioned, and it's not shown on this highlighted piece that just shows the building. but outside of around the perimeter, there's expected to be essentially a concrete pad where that sort of thing could be set up with additional picnic tables or bike racks or anything like that.
And there's an overhang over that. This is the part that for the pad, is there an overhang?
Just on the rear of the building right now, in the porch section. Rick, if you could bring back up page 3, just so I could sort of point to those things.
Just having spent many years now on this field, and this is a massive improvement. So thank you for that. I mean, the kids are not going to be, using the woods as the restroom, so that's good. And the water bottle thing is good, but pizza gets delivered there. All kinds of things happen here. So just trying to think about anything that could be just adjusted slightly. That's all.
No, I totally get it. So on the rear of the building in the upper right-hand corner of this presentation picture here, you can see the 3 bathroom doors on the rear of the building and then the covered porch. The covered porch is still, I could zoom in on the dimensions here to better go to the upper left there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's, yeah.
Okay.
It's still pretty small, but the point being that the direction that we got on this, Joanna, was to essentially provide a weather shelter with bathrooms.
Okay. No, I mean, I get it. Like I said, it's better than what we've had. So it's a step in the right direction. And there are lots of wet kids there, when we get caught out there. So having a place to go is good.
Sure.
Thank you, Joanna. Any other questions for Rob? May I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George. I see you saying aye, George. Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Rob, for being here.
Thank you to you and the committee.
Thanks a lot. Okay, here's what I'd like to do. We have, I don't remember, does Rick or Brian, do you remember who came in first, Bruce or Dorothy?
It was Bruce.
Okay, in which case, Bruce, we can take you next on your article on single-use plastics, or we can take Dorothy. I'll let the two of you decide who wants to go next. I think Dorothy will be relatively quick, Bruce. I think yours is going to be a longer discussion.
Okay,
However,
Dorothy can go first. That's great.
thank you, Bruce. I appreciate the courtesy. Okay, Dorothy, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Today, this is the other part of Article 9 that we had $97,988.68 allocated for a grant for substance abuse from the marijuana taxes. It's not necessarily just marijuana abuse education program, any kind of program. We had 2 applicants that put in. One was Fair Winds and the other was Nami with collaboration with Gosnold. It was unanimously voted that we would endorse the Nami, the Nami grant application. They are going to be offering through Gosnold the program called SOAP, which is a clinical program run for people that come out of treatment in order to get them back into their community. It is the first step out of a treatment program. They will be running it. It will be, NAMI will be the grant holder and Gosnold will be running it out from underneath them. We've had to guarantee that Gosnold will run this program and that the program will be on island. It will be it usually runs a 10-week program, and they're hoping to get 3 programs going with 5 people apiece, and they run for about 10 weeks total. So the decision on all of us was, this is the best thing we've seen come down the pike as we're going along. this is where we have the largest need, and we don't have any services for this. So it was a full endorsement that this would be the best place to place this money.
Thank you, Dorothy. Questions from the Finance Committee?
Oh, I should say what the grant application was. I'm sorry. It's only for 95,000, Denise.
Okay, so there's $2,968 left over.
Correct.
Okay,
I think it's 9,000. Oh, yeah. I thought it was $2,988.68 left.
okay. All right. So my question is, I thought Gosnold was leaving the island, so you did say that this is with a guarantee that Gosnold will provide the services. Is there any risk that they'll get halfway through and not be able to complete it?
I think there's a risk with any program, to be honest with you, Denise. They have given our word, the CFO and the CEO have given the word to Nami that they will do it. Nami has its integrity and has proven that it runs its programs and proves that it sticks by what it's doing. So we believe that this will be a valid program.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there a possibility that if worst case happens and Nami can then work with Fairwinds to continue the program if Gosnold just says, you know what, we're done?
The problem would be that Fairwinds does not have the clinical staff to do this kind of program, and it's the clinical training of the people that will run the program.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Peter Schaefer?
Maybe this is for Libby. I just want, do you know what the total marijuana tax generated this year?
Brian, do you?
That was the 97,988.68 that Dorothy referenced.
It was totally from that. Okay. And have you factored in going forward the new marijuana store and and it's going to be a grower as well. So there should be even more tax money coming from there.
So,
I mean, what,
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just was gonna say, I don't, that money will come when it comes. They're not open quite yet. I mean, we haven't really factored in a projection for this because it's all pretty new.
Okay. I think they're saying they're going to open in June. So that's why I was.
Yeah,
So we can only authorize what's in the fund at a set point in time, which we picked a few weeks ago as the point. And in the fund, which dedicates a percentage from the local option tax into it, was $97,000, the 97,988. So I can't take into account a projection and authorize out of it. I can only authorize or ask for authorization to transfer out what's actually in the fund itself at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I guess the good news is that there'll be more next year. Because,
Yeah.
of right, so we'll have more available next year. So, which is for funding programs that are well needed on this island. Okay. The mail is arriving and my dogs are attacking it. So of course they are. Okay, may I have a motion on Article 9, please? Are there any other further questions? Okay, in case you're worried, my catalogs are now dead, so. in case you're
Article
worried.
9, the motion is on both components, the
Yes, it's
mental
on-
health.
Yep,
Right.
it's on the previous part from last week. and then-
I'll recuse.
Oh, yes, please, thanks, Chris. Okay,
Motion to adopt.
thank you,
Second.
thank you, okay. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
George? Thank you, George. Joe Grouse,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Ace, aye, it passes unanimously with Chris Kowaki recused. Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Motion to adopt. Great. Now, Bruce, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm at this meeting because Article 75 is on the agenda. The last time the committee discussed this article, a vote was taken to provide a Finance Committee motion, a positive motion. Since that time, I worked with Town Council to word up such a motion, which was sent to Denise. I don't know if, I didn't see a package for the meeting, but I think that it may have been distributed to the group, but I don't know. I have a copy of it because it was an email I received a copy of. This was sent out on March 11th by John Giorgio. So what it essentially does is set forth Chapter 125A, single-use plastics. It's a little convoluted because originally this was a different section of the code, and town and various, I guess, town council decided it needed to be moved to section Chapter 125A. So that's one thing this motion accomplishes. The second thing it accomplishes is it scales down the verbiage of the originally submitted article. And to recap for you, the original article was submitted as a result of the plastics bylaw work group's work. And it was originally intended to merge the biodegradable plastic regulation, which is the Board of Public Health Regulation 71.00, and merge it into the plastics bylaw. And because of the timing, I had to submit a citizens article about 2 months before the town was allowed to submit their articles. So this extended verbiage was put in the original article to rescind the Board of Health's regulation and add the same verbiage to the bylaw for single-use plastics. It was complicated. Various boards and commissions had to remove wording, and we were adding it. In the interim, after this complicated language was submitted, town decided, well, it's not such a good idea to merge it. We'll leave them separate. So all that language needed to be removed. And then town decided they would also submit some modifications to the single-use plastics bylaw, and that was approved at the last town meeting. So now we had to reword what I was trying to accomplish by removing the lengthy merger language and by only addressing the issues that my article was proposing, minus what the town had proposed, because there was a little overlap. So the net result was we are adding several definitions that had been omitted previously and were necessary according to town council because the words were in the chapter 125A and they needed definitions. And the second thing this accomplishes is it adds several items back into the single-use plastics bylaw that had been omitted when we first presented it in 2018. And the items omitted were omitted at the suggestion of town council and the moderator at a meeting just prior to town meeting in order to make it a little easier to digest and to withhold those for a subsequent date, which is now. And then at the suggestion of town council, in the severability clause, which is the last paragraph of the bylaw, the words article somehow worked their way in there, and the words article in 3 or 4 places needed to be removed, and the word bylaw substituted for the word article. So that's what this Article 75 is about. At the last meeting of the FinCom, when it was discussed, A motion was made to approve this and to belay it to this session in order to have town council and myself and others word up a positive motion. One of the concerns was when the town article was approved, the publishers of the code failed to pick up that language. So this article that's in front of you now also picks up the town's articles that was already approved language. And this was done at the suggestion of John Giorgio, who provided that language. So here we are today, in essence, adding just 4 definitions that were needed, adding back 6 items of items to be added to the single-use plastics ban, and correcting the severability language. If you want to review the 6 items once again, I can briefly go over them. Let me know if that's your desire, and I'll go over the 6 items for you again.
Thank you, Bruce. So just, I mean, as a point of clarification, we did not have a motion to approve at our last discussion. We were waiting for town council and yourself to come back to us with the article that we now have in front of us, the one that adheres to the proper format, definitions, et cetera. And so now we'll have the discussion about the article, and then we'll make our motion accordingly. So thank you. And I will ask my FinCom members if they have questions, and please just raise your hand. So Jill, thank you.
Okay, so if, I know the issue of nips came up last time, so if we're, if this is to ban plastic nips, then we already aren't allowed glass nips, so this means there's no nips, or do nips get to go into like a paper box or something like that? That obviously not a paper box that has the verbiage that Bruce is changing in this article, but I'm trying to understand how the liquor stores can handle this, because that's probably a key component of their business, is selling these things. And I'm just trying to understand how, you know, what, is there a workaround, Bruce? Sorry.
I think I understand your question. The nip bottles being addressed are the smaller ones, only up to 200 milliliters. The larger nip bottles are not being addressed. And the reason these small nip bottles are being inserted back into this is because it's probably one of the top 2 or 3 litter items that we pick up as on the clean team sessions as we go forward. And they're particularly prevalent near the shops that sell them, near the walkway to the high school, between the Nantucket Auto Body Shop and the high school, and at the state forest. And the intent was to try to reduce this source of litter. Of course, like any other vendor, the workarounds, as you labeled them or called them, would be by the vendors and their distributors. They'd still be able to sell small bottles to the people who want to buy just, you know, a small shot while they're walking home or driving home. Hopefully not driving, but you understand what I'm saying. And just like Cumbies and Cisco and US Foods have worked around the plastics bylaw, this would be added to what they would have to work around. I haven't had any complaints or objections filed with the work group about this, or with me, by any of the vendors who sell these items. Does that answer your question, Jill?
Thank
Well,
you. And
sorry.
Jill, you had another question?
Well, I'm
Oh,
just,
the-
the work, sorry.
Sorry, 200 milliliters is 6.6 ounces, just in case.
Yeah,
any-
and I'm familiar. But Bruce, were any liquor stores involved in the work group, like any owner, like donor of hatches or Islander or any of that?
To answer your question, they were not in the work group. However, they were approached with this, and we did discuss it with them. I personally approached Hatches and I forget the name of the store across from the State Forest Lovers Lane, and discussed it with them. Of course, they weren't happy with it, and they were probably going to vote against this, but the overriding consideration was the terrible litter problem, and that there were sustainable alternatives for this product and this size bottle. It's not like there's no alternatives. Everything on this list has a sustainable article. Now, I'm not sure that the liquor stores have an extensive knowledge about this, but they certainly will have an opportunity to speak to it and object to it if they want to do that. Perhaps the only knowledge they might have about it was when I stopped in to speak with them over the past several months about this. But I don't think there have been any formal public hearings about this specific item, although the work group held discussions and public forums on several occasions with the various stakeholders. So they were clearly invited by public hearing notifications to come. And I attended several of those, and I don't remember any questions specifically about the nip bottles. There were many other questions, of course.
Jill?
So Bruce, this also goes back, I think Denise mentioned this the last time we met about what's that called, the cellulite acetate that's in cigarettes. So are there certain cigarette brands that are also going to be banned from these liquor stores?
No, there are no cigarette brands that are banned, only those that contain the plastic acetate filters. There are substitutes and there are alternatives. And interestingly enough, Europe is now banning menthol cigarettes because of their addictive nature. And my intent is not to prevent people from smoking, but these plastic fiber cigarette filters and tobacco filters are actually the #1 most prevalent litter on the island. They are toxic. They contain nicotine, a very potential poison. And they're eaten by birds and animals and whatnot, which kills them. To answer your question, there are sustainable alternatives to all of these types of filters.
Peter Schaefer, you had a question, and then I'll get to Chris and then back to Jill. So Peter,
Yeah,
you're
I
on.
had never heard of the word nips before. I had to look it up to find out what it was. Jill, do you have any idea what percent of the business it is of a liquor store?
I don't, but I go to the liquor store, including the one on Lover's Lane you're talking about, and they've got a lot of nips there. And that's what made me think about this. And if you've gone to Hatches, you'll see a lot of nips there. And there might be an alternative. I'm concerned these stores don't realize what's hitting them.
Right.
From not just cigarette and nips, but the other concern I really have is, Bruce, you're talking about a lot of judgments on people. It's not just litter. These things are toxic. It's plastic. You don't like that kind of plastic. I mean, I thought the whole point was to reduce plastic use for the environment, but I'm hearing a lot of other things come out about this. And I'm just wondering, what is it exactly you are getting at? Is that the goal, that plastic is toxic and bad and it's not biodegradable? And, I just feel like I'm hearing a lot of other arguments here and I'm trying to understand it better.
Well, thank you for that. We can circle back to the original discussion that led to the single-use plastic ban. The intent is not to change any individual's behavior or purchasing. We need to recall that the single-use plastics bylaw addresses commercial sale, use, and distribution. It does not affect individuals, families, and the like. As I said, there are sustainable alternatives for all this. This has been out there for quite a while. And I'm sure that between now and the town meeting, if there is some concern about this, one or two items could obviously be removed from this list by amendment, or they could be removed by the Finance Committee at this time by amendment. But the intent is to reduce the plastic litter and the plastic burden on the landfill. Just as a clarification for you all, plastic is not recyclable. It costs us several $100,000 a year to bale it up, truck it off, and pay to have it taken from us. And the intent is to reduce that. And at recent meetings, Graham Durovich even made a presentation. Their studies of the recent flow of plastic into the landfill shows a clear reduction. And it's attributable to our plastic, single-use plastic ban.
Chris, you had a question? Thank you, Bruce. Chris?
Yeah, just a quick question about, on the, a lot of focus on nips here this afternoon, but no plastic, no glass. What would the commercially available alternative be to those two things?
Different sizes, larger size, glass and plastic obviously would be. And I don't want to speak for the liquor distributors, but you've all recently seen, for example, boxed wine as an alternative to plastic and glass bottles. I'm not aware of them manufacturing small bottles of that nature, but there are alternatives. And
so there are, Madam Chair, so for clarification, I guess there are conceivable commercial alternatives, but not known alternatives on the market today.
I would suggest that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joanna?
So the NIPS thing is interesting. But if we read Dorothy's report, right, I just want to make this point, 495% of the liquor stores in Massachusetts reached their goal by July 1st of last year. So I think by limiting NIPS, we are not limiting the ability of these liquor stores to make money. And if anything, we're pushing people into buying larger sizes. And I'll just say that in my own experience, since January 1st, I've probably picked up 200 NIPS and other pieces of plastic garbage on the road that I live on, right? So Bruce is right. People are just throwing this stuff on the side of the road, tons of plastic.
Thank you, Joanna. Any other questions or comments? Jill? And then Peter Schaefer after Jill, and then Chris after Peter Schaefer.
You also just mentioned the boxed wine, which I find interesting because on the list of things that you are concerned about are boxed water. And because some of the boxes have plastic in them. Is that right?
The boxed water containers that are mentioned there were added at the suggestion of Graham Durovich because they are a burden on the landfill in terms of the mixed components. I really mentioned boxed wines because the question was asked whether there were non-plastic and non-glass substitutes. I'm not suggesting that it's a good idea, but it's a better idea. And I certainly would encourage folks not to discard these products. Much of the 6 items that are on the list, all of them are driven by the work of the plastic work group and the stakeholder meetings that we've had. The stakeholders not only included the island distributors and vendors, it included Cisco, US Foods, Stop and Shop, Cumbies. They all had input into the logistics and how they warehouse and are able to supply our island. The first two items on this list are from our sewer department because they are some of the top items that foul the equipment and cause the shutdown of the processing, and the workers there have to remove these items by hand. I can't think of too much more of a disgusting job, but those are on there because of my discussions with David Gray. We've discussed the the tobacco filter products, the nip bottles, and of course you're all familiar with the clamshell type containers and other non-recyclable takeout food containers. Many of the restaurants have gone to a more friendly type of a takeout container that is compostable. So these have all been discussed, and I hope that answers your question.
Peter Schaefer, you had your hand up, then Chris, then Jill, you'll get after Peter and.
Yeah, I just did some research and they're all over the board, but NIPS represent between 8 and 30% of a liquor store's business. But my concern is those nips are 1 3/4 ounces, and we're saying you got to buy a 22 ounce, whatever it is, 200 milliliter. I don't know what that is in ounces, but isn't that like encouraging people to drink more?
I don't know, Peter. I hope not. Again, we're getting into Jill's question about people's behavior, and the intent here is not to get into that. The intent is to try to reduce the supply of these items that are costly to the town to dispose of when they are recycled at the landfill, and the costs and efforts by the clean team and individuals who are concerned about the cleanliness of their streets and whatnot. These are a big source of litter and concern. So I guess to answer your question, no, I'm not trying to encourage people to drink more, although after meetings like this, I might be inclined. Sorry.
Thank you, Bruce. Chris?
Sure, a question and then a comment, since you asked for those as well, if that's okay. And the question is probably for Libby. If these were all recommendations of the work group, was there discussion, and was there a reason the select board didn't bring them forward as part of the bylaw?
I would say these were discussed by the work group, but we never got to a point where we endorsed any of this. Graham herself endorses all of this for the solid waste reasons that Bruce mentioned. But the board was asked if it wanted to sponsor this article, and it declined, although that is partially because it was submitted, it had already been submitted as a citizen petition.
Okay. And my comment would be, I have a ton of sympathy for a lot of the parts of this article, and in particular, the flushable wipes, which I'm sort of aghast that we allow those to be sold on the shelves of an island where we know it damages our septic systems and sewer system. In fact, I kept trying to remember to look if that was, I couldn't even believe it was true. And then I finally had my wife send me a picture from the supermarket with big flushable written on these wipes. So a lot of sympathy for that. And I understand the nip issue as well. And I hope that maybe we could encourage those retailers and others down the line that if the litter issue isn't addressed, that could very much be banned in the future. That's probably wishful thinking. But my primary concern is some of the comments that have been made about I think this is fairly broad. And I think as an outgrowth of our situation this year, where it was brought forth a year ago, maybe it was called, maybe it wasn't. Now it's up now. Is this the old one? Is this the new one? I'm afraid that people aren't aware enough from a public comment perspective. And that if people were truly aware of this, which I think is not necessarily their own fault for not paying attention, but a function of the COVID delay in the town meeting, that we'd have a lot more interesting public comment on a lot of these issues. And that would be my primary concern about going forward this year, and would be welcome to reconsider it in a future meeting, with adequate kind of notice and discussion.
Thank you, Chris. Jill, did you have a last question?
Yeah, and I'm not sure who could answer this, but I think, doesn't Nantucket have a boxed water company? I've seen the island on a logo and it's blue and the island's pink, and I've seen this water at people's houses, and it's a boxed water company. Like, did they weigh in? Do they meet the standard for the contents in their box?
No, they do not.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Graham has looked into that. I mean, their box is no different than, I don't believe it's any different than any of the other boxed water boxes. And that company, by the way, if you look closely at it, that water, I don't believe is actually from Nantucket.
Okay.
It just has a Nantucket name on it, like many products around the country do.
Are you
The,
telling me Poland Springs doesn't come from Poland, Bruce?
I don't think so, but
Or Maine.
but the issue of these boxes, which we originally thought, or at least I originally thought, would be an acceptable alternative. Graham did a lot of research on this, and they're plastic lined, and they have a different material for the spout and a different material for the cap of the spout, and they are just impossible to recycle, nor can they be composted. And that's why we thought that this was not a sustainable alternative to the plastic water bottles, and why we urging people to use personal water bottles that can be refilled at the tons of refilling stations that are being used on the island, and they can bring from home. But I think that kind of answers your question about the Nantucket water box. And let me just restate something that we reviewed in the originally passed this. There's a balance between companies' profit and bottom line and protecting the Nantucket aquifer and the environment, and what we spend to get rid of the stuff that the distributors and their system cause the citizens to deal with the waste. And when we discussed this initially with Cisco, US Foods, Cumbies, Stop and Shop, they all realized there was some, I'll call it economic hint, in terms of not being able to sell these thousands upon thousands of plastic water bottles, the small ones. But they also realized they could accommodate the change through their supply channel. And what they actually said to us was, look, if you're going to ban certain things, go ahead and ban them so we can adjust our logistics and our warehousing on the mainland. And by the way, since we passed our single-use ban, many towns on the Cape and in Martha's Vineyard have also adopted the single-use plastics ban. And so this is not, although we were a leader in this is not an issue that's dying out, it's actually expanding. And if there's something on here that would seem to be a problem, rather than push this away for another year and another couple of $100,000 in recycling costs for the island, perhaps if there was an item or two on the list that you prefer to put to later, let's pass the bulk of it to help the sewer department with their issues and with the issues you don't have a contention with.
Thank you, Bruce. Jill?
I'm just being really practical. If you can't buy water in plastic, now potentially a box and glass, then how can we buy water over the counter? We just can't. We just have to use our water bottle.
No,
What?
the ban on water bottles is only of the smaller sizes. There are much larger sizes that you can buy. And we've encouraged the landscapers to use water coolers on site. And they can buy containers of the larger size water bottles at Stop and Shop and at Cumbies.
Okay, I think at this point, at least from my perspective, I think we have enough information to close the public comment section of this. So, and then just go to deliberations. So I would just like to hear what people are thinking on the Finance Committee. Who wants to go first? Peter Schaefer?
I just think it's too complicated, it's too prohibitive, and it's not known by people that it's coming. So I would be against it.
Thank you. Who else wants to weigh in? Jill?
I'm just really not comfortable until we've heard comments from the local businesses. It's Stop and Shop, of course, can adjust. They're not the ones bottling water. They don't care. They can sell more expensive product. I want to hear from the local owned businesses how this affects them.
Thank you.
Otherwise, and so I totally am compassionate about the flushable wipes. And if town management says that we ought to pass this on that alone, I'm open to that. But the rest of it, I'm really uncomfortable with, and I don't support that. And I'm sorry, Bruce, I know you work really, really hard on this issue.
Is there an option for the Finance Committee if we were to say we were in favor of it, provided K and L comes off? And K is the plastic nips and L is the boxed water containers. So there's still flexibility for people to be able to get smaller, so just would that be an option? Joe?
I was just curious if Libby and / the town had any comment on this and whether this enhances what the bylaw that the town is putting forward is trying to do, or whether this just makes life even more complicated.
Well, certainly it would be a big help for the landfill and the solid waste operation, as Bruce has said. I pretty much can assure you that not very many people know about this. Yes, should everybody read the warrant articles when they come out in the paper? Of course, but do they? No, no one pays any attention to that, because no one pays any attention to anything until it is apparent that it's going to directly impact them. And town meeting is most likely not the greatest place for that to happen. So I as I have indicated, town admin has not reached out to anybody about this because it's a citizens petition initiative and we don't know how it's going to pan out going through the process. So is it good for the environment and good for the landfill? Yes, all of it is. Is it going to be very difficult to enforce? Yes. And our enforcement so far has been more education, and Bruce himself has been very helpful and with Graham to identify alternative packaging and materials and items that don't involve the type of plastic that we don't want in our landfill and on our beaches and on the sides of the road. But I don't have a dedicated staff person to do only this. And so it'll have to be continuing to be education with perhaps at some point the occasional enforcement on these new items as a symbolic gesture, maybe.
Thank you, Libby. Jill and then Chris.
My other question, Denise, if that's okay through you to ask Libby, I think I heard Graham on our last meeting say that it's not like we're sending less waste off of the island. Maybe we are though, and I'd like to know that. And if we don't know the answer to that as well, I'm not comfortable making a decision on this.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking exactly, but the less plastic sold and all of these plastic items and available here, the less that goes in the landfill. So ultimately the less that would have to be shipped off island or processed here.
Yeah, I understand that, but are we still sending the same number of trucks? Are we still paying the same amount every year to send waste off the island?
Well, it depends on the volumes.
But are the volumes, have they been reduced since this was in place?
I don't think we've been able to tell that because it's only been in place since June and it wasn't even in place in June because of COVID. It hasn't really
Right.
gone into effect yet.
Chris, and then Joanna.
Yeah, a question and then a comment, and the question, Madam Chair, I think is probably for Brian as to whether he can confirm I think Bruce said $300,000 in expected savings, or if he's seen any analysis of that would tie back to this, and whether that's a ballpark correct number for savings to the town over the next year if this were implemented.
I haven't seen the analysis that was used to come to that, Chris, so I
Okay.
can't.
Fair enough. I wouldn't ask you to
speak
comment.
for it, to be honest with you.
And then my comment, a little bit going back to what I said earlier, but if we could just do wipes on this call, I think my issue with the wipes is the way they're promoted and they're marketed as flushable. And in our context, they're not flushable. And I think that's misleading to people visiting the island and anything else. We can try to advertise our brains out to ask people not to flush them. But if there's an up thing, which I think would be at the major supermarkets, which I think, if we had this, the enforcement would be there, a big thing saying flushable. I think we should get them off the shelves. And if we could limit this to that, I would go for that this year. And then, as I said, I would love to see the rest of this be debated in the light of day.
Thank you, Chris. Joanna?
I think that, trying to clarify the amount of plastic having been reduced over this past year would be really tough considering COVID and the impact on the population of Nantucket. And we're not comparing apples to apples. So I don't think that's really a fair question. I know that, the statistic is 80% of all plastic water bottles end up in the landfill. So if we're banning plastic water bottles, there's going to be a reduction in plastic in the landfill. So I think that that's just logical.
Yeah, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Wait, Jill, let Joanna finish, please, and then you can.
So 80% is the statistic of water bottles that end up in the landfill. So if you are not selling them, then by the laws of nature, it's going to reduce. We're not going to get more. And then I also think that, these types that we've had this conversation before, and Bruce, I appreciate and applaud your efforts in bringing all of this forward. And even if some of it goes through today or doesn't go through today, at least you are, sort of forcing the conversation around social change. And if we don't protect the island, and things like flushable wipes are horrific for our infrastructure, and we will pay for that. And I think that, in terms of being able to enforce this, it is education, right? You can't police people or the choices they make or the purchases they make, but you can put out information so that people start over time. I see Libby drinking out of a glass water bottle to make changes, right? And that's what's appropriate. Education, teaching people how to be and treat this island with more respect than they do. So I support, Bruce, your efforts. Thank you.
Jill?
I just want to comment back to Joanna. This is just selling at commercial businesses. So people can still order all this stuff on Amazon or wherever they want. So there's not going to be an end to the plastic. And that's my point. It's not that what you're saying.
I know, but we need to.
Joanna?
Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry.
Jill let you talk, so you need to let Jill talk, please.
Yeah, I just want to make that point. It is limiting what people here can sell. And people voted for that to do that. So I respect that. But this is something I don't think we have enough input from our local businesses personally. I'm totally in favor of the wipes, but I'm not going to support that today because I would rather have input from the select board. I think they should be the ones to drive that and direct that if they think that's what we should do.
Okay, Joanna, you were.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay, thank you. Okay. I am drawing a line under the discussion because I think at this point we don't have new information leaping in, and I think we've discussed this quite a while, which is excellent. So we've explored all contexts and questions of this, and I am looking for a proposal from a member of FinCom as to a way forward. Here's what I see. I'll just summarize what I see. Motion not to adopt, that's straightforward. Motion take no action. Let's see how it makes out on town meeting floor. They're kind of the same, and Chris Glowacki will give us the 1-hour discussion on this at some other time when we can all meet in person, as he offered last time, on the difference between motion not to adopt and motion take no action. And then secondly, there is a potential to say motion to adopt excluding, of the 6, from my perspective, K and L, but maybe people see it as H through L and only letting flushable wipes go through, so to speak. So, yeah, that
That was
was
very punny.
that, yeah. So those are the different options that we have. And I would then ask FinCom what do you think on this? Because we're running out of days, folks. We don't have so many more days to make our motions. So if we could come to a motion today, that would be helpful.
I'm
Joe?
gonna say I'm for a motion not to, I'm sorry, gosh, I keep thinking we're in the room together, guys, forgive
We're
me.
not, Jill, so wait, Joe's up next, Jill.
Well, I'd be willing to start the bidding here, and if you will, and offer a motion to adopt this article, deleting items K and L, the nip bottles and pox water.
Okay.
I would support.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. So we have a potential motion and a potential second. George? I can't hear you, George. Still can't hear you. You're still muted. So George,
Down.
thumb up, thumb down. What? George?
I said I'll second the motion.
Okay. Back to you, please, George. Thank you. Okay, in that case, I am actually going to ask for the motion from Joe and then ask for the second, and then we can have a further discussion on the motion.
All right, to repeat that, then I move that we motion to adopt Article, where is it? 75, Citizen Article 75, with the modification that items K, nip bottles, and L, I guess, water boxes, if I'm going from memory here, are deleted from the text.
Thank you. And George, do you want to make your second again, please? George just seconded it. Okay, now further discussion on the motion. Is there any? Chris?
Yeah, I'm just really still concerned outside of the wipes, which I think stand alone here in terms of information on the other pieces and feedback, and particularly around the cellulose acetate filters. And I think, the information brought forward seemed a little squishy to me on how many products that might wipe off the shelves. So I'm probably not, it's getting close, but I'm probably not in favor of that motion myself, unless it was just limited to G.
So your proposal would be to make a motion to adopt only for G.
Yeah, in terms of, I'm either probably a motion to adopt on that, or a motion not to adopt, or put it a different way. I would say I'm a no on this motion here.
Okay.
And I just wanted my colleagues to know my rationale, that's all.
Thank you. I'm just trying to see if we can get to a motion that recognizes all the work and effort that Bruce and the committee have put into this, and that we understand that there is a forward-looking path that is useful for our island and for protecting our environment, and at the same time also respects our local businesses and wants to make sure that their voices are heard prior to anything going into place. And we haven't, as Libby said, as Chris has said, we just haven't had the socialization of this to a broad enough population to feel comfortable that every voice that should have been heard on it was. So, okay, to recap, we have one motion on place, which is motion to adopt, striking K and L. We have a second on that motion. We have a proposal, we have a second option or offering, which is motion to adopt G only. And I'm not asking for a second yet because I want to wait and see. First, we'd have to make a motion on the first one and then we come back to the second one. Peter Schaefer.
Motion not to adopt.
And then we have motion not to adopt.
And I second that.
No, you can't. Well, you can't until we make a motion on the first one. We have to vote on the first one and then we can have a second motion.
Okay.
Sorry. So, all right, let's vote on Joe's Motion to adopt, eliminating K and L, seconded by George, and by roll call, Peter Schaefer.
No.
Yeah, hold on, I've got to keep score now because I don't have Terry. Peter Schaefer is, let me go. No, yes, okay, 1 no, okay. Chris?
No.
This is no. Okay, Jill?
No.
Okay, 3 no's. George?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Joanna?
Yes.
Why they pay you the big bucks, Denise?
I've just turned into Kamala Harris.
Where's Stephen?
I vote yes. Motion to adopt, 3 no's, 4 yeses. Striking K and L. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, on to number 2, unpaid bills. Brian, I'm hoping this is a little bit more straightforward.
I'll do my very best, Madam Chair. I think Rick is going to share the motion just because it has the chart in it and for that. Is that right, Rick? Okay, so the total unpaid bills that we're asking for a positive motion from the FinCom is there's $28,838.08 in the general fund. It would come from free cash. Most, if not all of these bills were received after the July 15th end of year warrant was received. The great majority of them, there's a substantial amount from DPW relative to some facilities projects, and the majority of those being from Dauber Heating were not received until the end of July, and so we weren't able to encumber them because it was after the hard close. But all of these were received after the July 15th warrant date, which is the last warrant date for the fiscal year. There's also $5,225.78 from OIH, and we are recommending to take that be appropriated from the retained earnings in the Our Island home.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from the Finance Committee? May I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Roll call, Peter Schaefer,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Thank you. Jill,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Denise, yes, that passes unanimously. Okay, you're up again, Brian.
Thank you.
Annual revolving accounts.
Yes, Madam Chair. Rick will put this up so that we can walk through. There's a couple changes that we need to mention in this. The majority of the revolving accounts for fiscal 22 are consistent with the way they were in the budget stories for the respective departments, with the exception of we have made a change to the beach improvement to account for additional staffing to come out of the police portion of that relative to any potential increased usage of the beaches and staff needed to monitor those. Rick, if you could scroll down, please. Yes, right there. So with this, the solar rebate program was originally slated, approved last year at $100,000 in discussion with the energy coordinator, Lauren Sinatra. The program has been fairly successful and there's been interest in this program. So we are asking for an increase to $150,000 for that. And then the airport aviation fuel, this was brought to my attention today. We actually will need to make a change to a second change to the airport fuel revolver for fiscal 21. So the original request from the airport was 3.5 million. If this is a positive motion, I would ask that it be done with the understanding that we will be changing the airport aviation fuel revolver to 4 million from the 3.5 that was presented. This was done just within the last hour, so I didn't have a chance to update this yet.
Questions from the Finance Committee? So if there's a motion, a positive motion, the positive motion would be motion to adopt with the aviation airport fuel revolver at $4 million. Do I have a
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Peter. Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, I. So motion to adopt with the airport fuel revolver at $4 million. Thank you, Brian.
I think I'm up again with Article 16, Madam Chair.
You are. Please.
And while Rick is putting that up on the screen for you, perfect. As this is primarily directly in concert with what the Capital Program Committee recommended. Rick, if you could just scroll down and we'll note 2 changes that we did have to make to this. Keep going. No, next one, to the groundwater investigation first, yes. So this was originally presented and this has changed and been a very fluid situation, and we need to actually change that to 8 million in the language. With the groundwater investigation at the airport, and just earlier today in discussion with them, they need to, we need to increase this based on a potential change in the route for any of the water that will be, the water system that they're designing to bring water to the impacted homes. The order of magnitude is $1.3 million is an increase. It's hoping that when this actually goes out to bid that it won't be needed, but based on discussions with the engineer and a potential change in the routing, I don't have all of the information on why the engineer thinks the routing may have to be changed, but the airport's asked that I ask for you to consider the $8 million to ensure that we have sufficient funding to cover the potential changes that may need to be done. Rick, if you could also go down to the last with the sewer, please. And there was one addition in the sewer. The centrifuge system at the Surfside Wastewater Treatment Plant is experiencing problems and is very much on its last legs. We have actually an emergency procurement authorization with DCAM to procure the system and the installation because there's a 30-week, almost a 30-week lead time to get the system necessary to install. We've since learned between the time Capcom met and recommended and recently that the system that was originally installed was not designed to handle activated sludge waste, which is what the way that the treatment plant processes this. So we're in a situation right now where we have to replace these centrifuges, or else the sewer treatment facility will struggle to operate and keep up or operate at all. So that estimated cost from Hazen and Sawyer, which is engaged and has performed the design and actually has put the system out to bid. The estimated cost for installation, the system, and design and oversight is just shy of, it's about 1.2 million, but they've suggested that we carry 1.5 million, just basically because of any unforeseen conditions when we go to install them. But this is a critical component that needs to be replaced to continue through the busy summer season for the sewer system, for the sewer treatment plant. So those are adds that I wanted to bring to your attention. That everything else in this report is consistent with what Capcom recommended. The only other change in this report that you may have noticed is there is no more Wanacommet water. It is could you scroll down to that? It is the Water Department Enterprise Fund, because the legislature and the governor have signed the home rule petition to merge the 2 water departments. So we have corrected that, and it actually has to be changed in the 1 million, but we will make that editorial change.
Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
questions from Finance Committee? So Brian, these are, what? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
So these are 2 new borrowings. Will they have to be Will they have to be on the ballot?
No, so the Airport Enterprise Fund is, the original ballot was written at 6, or the original question or proposal to Capcom was 6.7. So all we're doing is increasing it in the motion to 8 million, and that is funded by the airport. And the 1.5 million would be funded through the Sewer Enterprise Fund, not through the general fund, so there's no ballot.
Okay,
One other change, actually, Mark did email me late today again about this. He has asked that we, rather than do a borrowing, he would like to use retained earnings for the $1 million. So if in your motion is positive, the changes will change that language to a retained earnings. The water company, with the combined Sconset and Wanacom, has about $5 million in retained earnings, and rather than borrow, they've suggested that they would rather use retained earnings.
that was my next question, was how much retained earnings they had.
Yes.
Chris?
Well, I was just going to ask if Brian had a view on that capital choice.
I think with the 1 million from retained earnings,
In lieu of using debt.
I think that it's a better alternative. It will minimize the impact to the ratepayers, and I think it is the prudent choice given with the merger that they have just under $5 million.
Great, thank you.
Chris, other questions? May I have a motion? George?
Brian, I just wondered whether, in the case of the sewer rebuild, are we getting redundancy out of this, or is that part of a later plan?
I think that it's a really great question, George, and I think the redundancy aspect is in the scoping project that Weston and Sampson is doing for the phase 2 upgrades to the system. This right now is just addressing the critical need at the plant itself.
Thank you, George. Any other questions?
No.
May I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve with the appropriate language, changing the water company from to retained earnings from use of debt.
Thank you. Rick, you had a question?
Sorry, the document already reads retained earnings. I can put it back up.
Thank you. Then I would say a motion to adopt.
Thank you, Chris. May I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. By roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
aye,
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Brian, you're up again. Article 30.
So this is the, if I have the right, Airport Special Purpose Stabilization Fund for airport employee accrued liabilities. I believe that they are recommending $100,000 to come from retained earnings, to be transferred from retained earnings into this fund.
Any questions? May I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Guess what I need?
second,
Thank you. Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
aye,
Chris,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then Article 31, Brian, and then you're
I'm done for a minute, I think.
done for a minute.
So Article 31, Madam Chair, if everybody remembers last year, the town had proposed putting $500,000 from free cash into the special purpose stabilization for town employee accrued liabilities. We are not recommending that this year. The motion we would ask is to take no action on the article. It's not something that we are prepared to do it this year. So
Is there any risk in not doing it?
the only risk is that it was to start the process of setting aside the money rather than taking it out of operating budgets for any retirements. So the risk is having large scale amount of retirements that we don't anticipate. Other than that, there is no risk. Currently we would continue the practice that we have had.
Thank you. Questions, other questions from FinCom? No, I need a motion, please.
Motion to take no action.
Schaefer?
second,
Thank you. I just automatically went to you, Peter, at the second.
that's all right, I'm the second guy.
That's where you are on my screen. You're right below
Yeah.
Joe. Okay, so the motion is take no action. Joe,
Aye.
Thank you. Peter,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Aye, the motion take no action carries unanimously. I can't even say that ever still, one of these days.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so other articles? No. Okay, good. The date of our next meeting is Monday, March 29th. So as it
Madam
stands,
Chair,
yes, Brian?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Article 73, the bylaw for select board bylaw amendment for animals is on the agenda. I don't know if we were going to
Oh,
do that.
that's right. It's not on my, I didn't print a current copy.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
and then
okay.
there are
Thank
two
you.
other ones. The home rule petition amending the town charter relative to the audit committee, which I think we need to resubmit to this year's the home rule petition. And then there's the Adopt Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay.
article is on there. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
you.
no, we should get them done because we have other articles next week and we're running out of days. So 73, Libby, I'm gonna let you do the animal one, please.
So 73 came about because the select board has had on and off discussion about dog behavior and loose dogs and the leash law. And as you may already know, the leash law historically forever has not been actively enforced all around the island. Technically, dogs are supposed to be on leashes everywhere unless the property owner says they don't have to be on a leash. So that's basically private property or places like conservation land. So when a loose dog, though, is caught or actually, scratch that, I'm remembering now. This had more to do with loose dogs, yes, but also dogs that, how can I say this? Cause the need for a nuisance dog hearing. And the fine isn't very much, $50. So somebody pays the $50 and then their dog goes and does something else, they just pay another $50. So the theory is that the higher the fine, the less likely it will be for people to lose control of their dogs as easily as they seem to do now.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, may I have a motion?
Select board spends quite enough of their time on dog issues that they probably have this as right as they could get it. So I will make a motion to adopt.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Denise, aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Remind me again, Brian, I'm sorry. The other one.
93.
Thank you. That'll teach me not to print the current copy. All right. Oh, audit committee. This is you, Brian. Aren't you audit committee?
Can I just to speak to this one? This was in the warrant already in 2020 and had a positive motion from the finance committee.
I remember that. I don't know why it didn't get part of the rollover ones. So we need to make them, we need to, does anyone want to call it and reopen our vote on motion to adopt on this from 2020? I see no reopening. So there we go. It's confirmed. Unless we have to vote that we don't want to reopen it. We have to vote, Libby?
I thought you basically already, I don't know, in my
Do we
head, I
have to
thought you
do it because
basically,
it never got sent?
I don't know. But in any case,
just.
Well, we weren't voting the ones that we already took action on. Somebody wanted to vote
yeah,
on them.
we only voted whether we were going to reopen them, and we aren't going to reopen this one. So we were only voting to reopen on March 1st, and we reopened the plastics one. And then everything else was passed over as previously motioned. So I guess this fits in that category. I doubt there's going to be a lot of public objection to this one. So we can just move on? Just check.
110.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure because, you know, I do my best at protocol, but I don't necessarily get it 100% right. 93. Okay, 110. Okay. Comments, observations from the Finance Committee on this? So when we first discussed it with the sponsors, Peter Schaefer made the very good point of there's no education component to it. Which would have been interesting if one wanted to follow it through to its logical conclusion. So I remember, Peter, you making that comment. In fact,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
made my spreadsheet. So any other comments or observations on this one? Joe?
I mean,
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't realize you were waving at me. I thought you were just.
I was late. I can't say I find this sort of article something I get very enthused about. And I'm not sure why the Finance Committee, it has really no financial impact on the town one way or the other. It strikes me as the kind of article that if the voters of the town want to, you know, swap Indigenous Peoples' Day for Columbus Day, they can vote on that. And I think we ought to make this a take no action article and let the voters decide what they want. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, so.
Jill, you were about to say something?
I was, but that's okay.
Okay, Joanna?
I agree with Joe.
Okay, then may I have a motion?
Motion to take no action.
Thank you, Peter.
Second.
Thank you, Joanna. Any further discussion on the motion?
I guess I'm open to a motion not to adopt.
Okay. I mean, the beauty of take no action is it really does let the voters decide. Do they want to make this? Do they want to make this statement that Nantucket wants to make, or are they ambivalent one way? You know, I was gonna say ambivalent one way or the other, but that's a little redundant. So,
But isn't this a national holiday?
yeah, I believe it is
So?
a holiday, and the sponsors, if I remember the discussion, said that we have the ability as a locality to make change it as to how we would like to celebrate it, and other localities have done that. So it will still be a national holiday. It won't change it. People will probably still celebrate Columbus Day. And Nantucket somewhere will call it Indigenous Peoples' Day.
That we don't have to do a home rule petition to get that changed at state level either?
Oh, no, no. Yeah. So well, first we have to vote on the take no action motion. And then if that doesn't pass, then we revisit it and see if there's a motion not to adopt. So
Right now, we're in discussion right now is where we are.
yes, we are, but I'm just saying what will have to happen next. So
This is where I'll point out briefly that there is absolutely no difference between take no action and motion to not adopt
I know.
in actuality. So, and I'll come back to this in that discussion you referenced.
Thank you. Joe?
Well, I would just say, I disagree with that in this case, with Chris on that in this case, in that I think voting to take no action is just leaving it to the voters. Not to adopt is recommending a negative decision. And I just don't see this as something where the Finance Committee or any of it, I mean, like I said, I think it's kind of a we're being taped. I won't make a personal opinion, but I just think we let the voters decide what they want to do.
I did look up one time the difference between take no action and motion not to adopt, and the outcome is the same, meaning it isn't adopted. However, the intent, to Joe's point, is slightly different. So that's, I did go out to the Attorney General's website to better understand that, where there is a wealth of information. Thank you, Gavin. George, you were going to say something?
I'd say I support Joe's position.
Thank you. Is there another comment? So, Jill?
Well, I think, I know you're saying that there's no financial implication. There probably isn't, but, you know, they do, I think the town at least would have to change a lot of, like, a lot of signs, or maybe, you know, how they market what's happening Columbus Day, or rather not happening on Columbus Day, since, I mean, I don't know.
George?
This is not uncommon throughout New England, that locales just find their own way to coexist with other existing holidays. And there may be printing expenses, decor expenses, but it's nothing like unknown.
Thank you, George. Peter?
And the one other thing is, regardless of what happens, I mentioned this last time too, Stop and Shop's going to run a Columbus Day sale. And, you know, most of the stores in town will probably run a Columbus Day sale. They're not going to run an Indigenous people sale. So it is what it is.
And who's to say it's going to win? No, we're past. So
So with that, further discussion on the motion, because otherwise we will go to a vote. We will go to a vote. Joanna, we'll lead off with you. The motion is take no action.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris.
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously as take no action. Okay. With that, now Brian, have I done them all?
think
Yes,
so.
Madam Chair.
Should have said Rick, because Brian was in rapture. Okay. All right, so thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Pardon?
Motion to adjourn? Are we done?
First date of next business, which is Monday, March 29th. So the 29th and 30th, we'll finish up, I think, all of the articles. The one I've left open to the last possible minute was the one about the PFAS reporting, because I'm giving Megan Perry every opportunity to show up at one of our meetings to discuss it with us. Otherwise, we'll just make our motion on the 30th on that. And yeah, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get everything closed by the 29th and 30th, by the 30th, and that we won't need April 1st. So I think we're in good shape. I think that's what the planning's been, that with Brian and Rick, who've been great about helping plan and keep this on track. So I think we should be able to finish up one day early from the deadline. So that's my hope, at least. So, and I think we're on track to do that. So with that, now your motion, please, Jill. Jill, there we go.
To adjourn.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. And as usual, Libby, Rick, Brian, thank you so much for this. It's very helpful as always.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. The 29th.